So it's my honor to introduce today's esteemed speaker, Zukiswa Wanner. She is a prolific novelist, journalist, and editor, and is often celebrated as one of the most important contemporary voices of Global South. Welcome, Zukiswa. A very warm welcome from Inquilabi Students Unity.
Thank you so much for having me. I am absolutely honored to be here.
So we have some questions for you. Can I ask?
Absolutely.
So, my first question to you is that you are considered to be one of the most efficient writers of contemporary time to portray apartheid, and you do it sometimes in a more satirical way. So, as a writer and cultural activist, you know the power of storytelling. So, how do you think that it challenges the dominant Western narratives about Palestine, that it's just a conflict between two groups? At one side, there is terrorist Hamas, and the other side, there is State of Israel, which is, according to them, which is the symbol of Western values and democracies. So, how do you establish your own narrative, and how storytelling challenges this whole scenario?
Well, you and I are from countries that were colonized, so I always wonder about what Western values mean. What do Western values mean? Because the countries that colonized us were Western countries. Does Western values mean killing people? Does Western values mean committing genocides over and over and over again? We saw it in India. Does it mean like stealing your kohinoor and stealing our particular mineral wealth as well? What are Western values? Perhaps that's my question to you. But yeah, so that's my question to you, and then we take
Well,
it from there.
you were absolutely right. Since we were colonized about 190 years, Western values toward is basically plundering, genocide, and famine. The like I'm from Bengal, especially I'm from Bengal actually, and Churchill masterminded a plan to starve Bengal during World War II, and we have seen it all. My grandparents, they were a victim of this famine and partition and riots that followed afterwards. So
Mm.
to me, Western values are nothing but a hypocrisy, sugarcoating over their past atrocities and exploitation. But to
and
many
and
of
present
them,
and,
even
and present
uh,
atrocities as well.
yes, absolutely.
Yes. So I think I always think about, you and I from the global south, and generally with global south countries, I always think that um, a week or so ago, Francesca Albanese was doing the Nelson Mandela lecture, and she said something very relevant. She thinks that it shouldn't be referred to as the global south, or it should be the global majority. And when you think about it, that is really what we are. We're the global majority. And I think as the global majority, what we should be asking for is a new world order. And that new world order should be more humane, more kind, more loving. I always question the idea of the fact that we are entrusting nuclear energy to the global minority who are responsible for having committed genocides for the last 500 years, for slavery, for colonialism, for starvation as a weapon of war. And if that is then what we say are Western values, then absolutely Israel fits that it fits perfectly because that's what it has been doing ever since it got into Palestine 77 years ago, or it became a state rather. It got recognized by the United Nations.
Okay, I got your point, and thanks for summarizing it so in such a nuanced way. So, my next question is to you that according to you, what role does Sumud Flotilla play in amplifying Palestinian voices beyond political rhetoric?
I think really, it would have been very nice, and I keep saying that it would have been very nice for us to get to Gaza as a beginning. But, you know, what I think it did is it woke up the conscience of a lot of people in the world who might not have been like very familiar with it, because now that we're seeing people that are familiar with, uh, and by waking up, I'm saying, you know, it always seems so far away up until people, are involved. So when there was a call out for the Global Sumud Flotilla, which was a merging really of Freedom Flotilla and Global March to Gaza. And, um, the reason why I agreed to take part is because at this point in time, you were having a whole lot more boats, you were having a whole lot more people. And to me, what this said is if you have more people and more boats, there's a greater chance of people getting to Gaza. In all honesty, we should not be having a situation where civilians are bringing humanitarian aid or creating a humanitarian corridor as we attempted to do. This should be the job of governments. The United Nations and the world governments should be consensus enough to be able to say what is happening is wrong. People are being killed, people are being starved. And therefore, we need to make sure that medicines get to people, diapers get to children, formula gets to babies, food gets to people. But this hasn't been the case. And because, in the absence of governments acting, we sailed. And, I was on a boat that got intercepted 28 nautical miles from Gaza. There was one that went as far as 9 nautical miles. As I said, I wish we would have arrived, but what that being on that boat did, and what it did, I think, because we're from 44 countries across the world, what that did is people became, those who had been like a slumber, if you will, became aware, but we also had a situation where our family members, started thinking. I know, like, for instance, my family now are very conscientious about not drinking Coca-Cola, for instance, whereas before I went on the flotilla, that wouldn't have been an issue for them. So they're very conscientious about the things they boycott, and that to me is saying something. So to me, that already means, in a way, that was a successful campaign. If I could manage to get my families to start thinking about the way they buy, and when people start boycotting, that hurts capital. And uh, Israel, the state of Israel exists because of capitalism. It exists because, they're there to sell weapons and so forth and so on. And these weapons are then tested on the Palestinians. And those same weapons that are tested on the Palestinians, um, you know, are also then sold by the military industrial complex, because they can clearly see that these drones work, this and this works, this weapons work, and then they are the weapons that we're seeing that are killing people, in being bought and used, being traded and used to kill people in the Sudan, to kill people in the Congo, to kill people in Haiti, to kill the Tamils, right across the world. So I always say that, Palestine is ground zero, but it's a collective issue for all of us in the world. It's our last bastion against capitalism, and speaking up against it. And Palestine's death is our death. You know, workers know this. Jobs are being lost because they're being lost now to the robot industrial complex, so that people can maximize their profits. in what world does it make sense that somebody says that they've got um, $20 trillion in their account, and yet we've got people who haven't eaten? Why are we okay with that situation? And why do we decide that it's okay to pay attention to somebody just because they have money?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you that as a human collective, we have failed. We have failed our fellow brothers and sisters. So, my next question to you is once Africa was the global hotspot of anti colonial struggle, but with the rise of neocolonialism, it has tried to crush the spirit of African people, sometimes by setting up dictators who are nothing but the lapdog of global north, by these powers funding genocides and terrorist group has often created t- conflict in this region. But when Africa bleeds, it's often overlooked by the rest of the world. As we are speaking today, a genocide is taking place in Congo and Sudan. So, can you
Absolutely.
share your insight on this subject?
So, I think, as I said, Palestine is ground zero, but it's ground zero for a lot of these wars. Including Haiti. So, just as an example, the weapons. Uh, so, as you know, uh, United Arab Emirates didn't exist until 1971. As a state, it came about because oil had been found, and then the Americans decided they were going to get some proxy guys over there that they would prop up. And these are the sheiks of today. Now, um, the fact that somebody can't wear a kafir in United Arab Emirates says something about them, because technically they're supposed to be family with the Palestinians. Now, what is then happening is they get their weapons from the United Arab Emirates gets weapons from Israel and from the United States. And what they do with those weapons is they use them to they give them to the Rapid Sudanese Forces, RSF, the rebel group in Sudan, and those weapons are then tested. Those weapons kill the people in Sudan. But what they do in exchange for the weapons, so that these guys, the RSF, can get power, they get gold. The gold is given to Sudan. What happens when they get that gold is Sudan gets that gold, and they also get the gold that's coming from South Africa, from Zimbabwe, from Botswana, other countries that have gold. And what they do, because when you have international law says that if you have uh, minerals that come from a war zone, they can't be traded. But when they get that, they melt them together and they have them together so that you can't see that it's the gold of a region is Sudan. So I always say that this is so intimately tied to all of us, because we have gold here in South Africa. We had miners that got killed in Stilfontein, artisanal miners digging for gold, and there's never any question. All the time they say, oh, these are illegal miners, as though human beings can be illegal. But nobody ever questions who is it, who is buying this gold so that they can take it to the United Arab Emirates. So that's one. On the Congolese front, you have the M23, which is propped up by the Kagame government. And to help you, like, I don't want this to sound like some crazy conspiracy theory. This is actually quite easy. As you all know that there was a genocide in Congo in Rwanda in 1994. What's happening now, what has been happening with the M23 is M23 is propped up by the Rwandan government. And it's crazy that this would happen, because you would think, well, they went through a genocide, therefore they're not going to do it. But last year, when they were doing the 30th anniversary of the Rwandan genocide, the president of Rwanda invited as guest of honor the president of Israel. Um, you know, and to me, I was like, this is a blatant disrespect on the bones of everybody who was genocided in Rwanda. So that's one. But secondly, Rwanda doesn't have any coltan, um, but it has the largest reserve of coltan. Congo has coltan, and there are people who children have died. Over 6 million have died already since the 2000s because they are then sent. The M23 goes and raids villages, and then they send children there because they're lighter, so they're able to get this stuff much easier than adults, and they're able to come out. But most of the time, they end up getting buried and they end up dying. They never come out. So, and they're doing this for wealth. There is also where they end up, like when these villages are raided, where they end up like farming, farming their body parts. So they take their eyes, they take their hearts. It's just horrific. I was just reading a memoir by a Congolese young woman who managed to escape and made it to South Africa. And you read it and you just break. It breaks your heart every moment because she's telling about what was happening when she was on the camps and how she managed from then on to travel all the way to South Africa with her older sister. And
Well,
then getting here and thinking that it was going to be a safe space, but then getting into becoming a sex slave on the part of her sister, you know?
these atrocities are blood boiling. This is the least I can say, and it's a shame to all of the humanity that this capitalist economy is currently running on blood money, nothing else but blood money. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And in a perfect world, we'd all say we're not going to trade with these countries. We'd all say we are boycotting certain things, but it becomes problematic when people go online and they want to show off about the fact that they're doing a holiday to Dubai, um, and because they're going shopping, it's devastating. It's and it dehumanizes the people that are killing. And yet, you and I know that if a single, if a white American, was killed in any of our countries, we would probably be asking for third world war.
I am sitting in a shelter in my home, but I'm feeling nauseous as you were describing the atrocities that African women and children they are facing. So, like, it's just so horrible that I am in loss of word to describe how I was actually feeling when you were describing this. The least I can say that we have failed them. We have failed our African brothers and sisters.
I think we've failed humanity, you know. We've failed humanity because beyond Africa, there are all these countries where all these things are happening, and we sit and we keep doing what we're doing, but we don't really question. We speak up only so long as it doesn't hurt us. If it hurts our profits, if it hurts our bottom line, if it stops us from going on that next little holiday that we wanted to take, we don't care. And I always say, just as we have there is like the big problem of the big wars of Congo and Sudan and Palestine and Haiti, and I can't even call them wars, they're atrocities, because they're being visited on a people that can't fight back as they should. But I also say that before we can, you know, um, are we also even taking care of the people in our locale? Um, are the workers in our countries? You know, do they have roofs over their heads? Is everybody in our country like able to? Are their children able to go to school? Are they able to sleep with food in their stomachs? Are those basics taken care of? Because it's a bit hypocritical for us to cross borders and go elsewhere and talk about problems here when we're not even talking about what's happening at base, when we don't criticize those in power within our spaces, or even the way we treat the people we encounter, the people who work with us or for us.
So my next question to you is that when Global Sumud Flotilla started its journey and people were on the street to support it, primarily Spanish and Italian government said that they will send navies to protect the vessel, but at the last moment they backed off. So can you shed some light on this fact?
Well, they actually came with us for quite a while, but then they backed out, and I think they backed out because of pressure from again Israel and from the United States, and I think were even surprised when they had even sent any boats in the first place, any naval ships to protect us, and they'd sent two. But we're also delighted because part of the solidarity that occurred from that was because of the Italian workers who downed, you know, everything, and they said the country was going to come to a standstill. And I think Meloni was very scared about what was about to happen in her country because she realized she wasn't as powerful as she thought she was.
Yes.
And I think
Uh,
there's an argument to be made. Sorry, let me just. There's an argument then to be made uh, for all of us in realizing that we might not be presidents, we might not be ministers, we might not be trillionaires, but we actually, uh, the presidents and the trillionaires really just like make up 1% of the population. We are the 99%. And so collectively, we actually have more power than they do. And I think that scared the world. I think that scared world leaders when they saw what happened in Italy, like, oh, wow, you know?
yes, all power to the working class.
Indeed.
So my next question is to you that South Africa has shown more spine and courage than any other so-called big powers. Like it has tracked Netanyahu to the International Court of Justice. It has closed Israeli embassy. Unlike this part of the world, which has rich history of anti-colonial struggle and a past that was championing the right of liberation and self-determination to all the third world countries. Mm. As South Africa has established itself to a staunch supporter of anti-colonial struggle, India has failed massively. So I just want to ask you that how do you see this? Does the South African government help you in the Sumut Flotilla journey, or what were the resistance that you faced?
You know, South Africa, yes. I mean, it's nice that we did this ICC case. It was essentially where the world was saying who's going to bail the cats, and South Africa did it. But more can still be done. I think we don't realize, both South Africa and India doesn't realize. We don't realize our power as BRICS nations because the winds of change are shifting towards BRICS, and if the United Nations does not reform, and if it's going to fall, the new power block is certainly going to be BRICS. And so it's kind of sad when you see India, when you see Modi. uh, being best friends with Netanyahu, despite the history of India. You know, it's heartbreaking. That said, South Africa and Brazil and all BRICS member nations and China and Russia can do so much more to stop all the wars that are happening than has been done. You know, so for instance, here in South Africa, I know it's not as bad as India. I know India is sending weapons to Israel, but in South Africa we're sending coal. So the coal that comes from one of our provinces goes to prime coal. It goes to Israel to light up a genocide. You know, and this is something that a country that does that, a company that does that, the company should be deregistered by the country, but it hasn't. And why? Possibly because men in power are benefiting. You know, maybe they hold shares in that particular company. So there is so much more that we can do, and India and Brazil is still sending oil to Israel. So we just really need to like an absolute embargo, trade embargo. You know, and take it from there. There are enough countries for us to trade with in the world without having to trade with Israel and America.
Yes, so you are absolutely true. Divestment and embargo can be a very effective way to deal with an apartheid state like Israel. So,
Hmm.
my next question to you is that the word Sumud Flotilla itself embodies steadfastness amidst all this global apathy and indifference and Israel's continuous aggression. So, personally, what keeps you grounded in action and hope?
I think to be a writer is to hope. To be an artist of any kind is to hope. And I think when one loses hope, that's when maybe something in you dies, or your soul dies, or you commit suicide because you think there's no more hope. And so I have hope in humanity, and part of my hope in humanity, I'll tell you what it is. When part of the reason why I took part in the Global Sumud Flotilla, why I made the application, is I was feeling very powerless as I watched um, a genocide playing out on my phone and on my laptop and on my TV. I'm lying, I don't have a TV, but on my laptop and my phone. I was constantly and consistently heartbroken to see this. And I'd gone for marches, I'd written petitions, I'd signed all these things. And so when I saw this opening up, I applied and I was fortunately enough accepted. And then I went, right? And when I went there, I departed because there were four departure points. There was Italy, there was Spain, there was Tunisia, and there was Greece, I believe. And I departed from Tunisia. And of course, I mean, it was nice to be in an African country, but I also didn't have to worry about visas and stuff with an African passport. Now, I went there, and what was telling is the absolute and utter kindness of everybody who was there. And while I was there, I found out, although we ended up being like maybe like 500 on the flotilla, 30,000 people had applied from across the world to be part of that flotilla. 30,000 people. Now you think of it like this. If we actually had enough money, what would have happened if 30,000 people had been able to be accommodated and had gone at sea? That siege would have been broken. Yeah? If even 3,000 had been able to be accommodated, 10% of that siege would have been broken. And so That's what keeps me grounded. That's what gives me hope. The fact that I thought I was by myself, but when I sailed, there were 500 people, and later on, I found out there were 30 other, 29,500 other people who would have wanted to be part of this. But in addition, there were many others, millions upon millions, who followed the trip, who cheered us on, who would have wanted to go there but didn't have maybe the resources, or they had like maybe they were ill, maybe they had health problems, maybe they had family problems and stuff. So to me, that gave me hope that humanity lives, and it made me believe that there's still the kind in humankind still lives. Yeah, and that's what keeps me grounded. That's what gives me hope all the time.
Well, hope is a dangerous thing, but it is what keeps us alive.
Absolutely.
My next question to you is that in this context of Samud Flotilla, do you see that Pan African solidarity is being revived?
It was already being revived, and I'll tell you why. During lockdown, there were protests in Nigeria called the NSAS protests, and I remember how everybody like was signing on petition across the continent, and supporting what was happening in Nigeria, and asking for the protection of Nigerians and condemning the Nigerian government. So that was NSAS when writer Tisilanga Rembo got arrested in Zimbabwe for questioning the government. Again, the whole world, the whole continent came together and they said, no, not in our name, you know. Um, when young people in Kenya, the Gen Zs, went on the street, you know, everybody was rooting for them when they did the protests against the finance bill. Right now, we were following Madagascar, when they toppled their president, who was a DJ, Rajolina, and we've been following what's been happening in Burkina Faso and the AES states. We were following the elections in Tanzania, and many of us have solidly condemned what has happened with the loss of lives and the continual imprisonment of the main man in opposition. So yeah, I think definitely, but every generation is called to do something, and I think I am very proud of the youngsters of my continent, the Gen Zs, because I think they have shown what it means to be, borderless.
So when basically Palestinian genocide was going on, so the
Mm.
great American president Donald Trump has recently came up with his own narrative that a selective Christian genocide is going on in Nigeria uh, by Boko Haram. So I would like to know your narrative on this subject.
You know what? That man is mad. But also, this is why I'm happy to be particularly having this conversation on a day that an African of Indian origin is now mayor of the biggest city in New York, in America. It gives me joy. So, you know, uh, I I understand there was a pushback from China saying dare us type of thing, don't touch. But also we also know that Boko Haram was funded by the Americans. Uh, Documentation came out not long ago that highlighted that the funding for Boko Haram was coming from USAID. So you start wars in people's countries so that you can be able to get their minerals, and then you go there and then you start saying that now you're coming to restore order. How does that work exactly? How does that work? Like, I think if America learned to mind its own business, the world would be a much happier place. You know, so
And
many people have been
US,
killed, so many people have died, and yet you still want to be. You can't be. You're clearly not a police person of the world because you can't even police your own country. You keep killing people, on the streets who are unarmed.
and USAID is the same organization who basically funded the Palestinian genocide. They funded Israel IDF.
I don't know. I don't know whether USID did, but I know USID. I know what they've done on this continent. As far as Israel is concerned, I know Israel gets its money directly from the United States Senate, which seems to vote for it all the time, and United States Congress, which seems to vote to give them more and more money all the time. You know,
So it was only about 30, 40 years ago when people of South Africa started the revolution against the apartheid state. So do you think that legacy of resilience and struggle still flows in the veins of African people, and that
I,
gives
I
them the absolute courage to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people?
I absolutely think so. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why South Africa was able to take Israel to the ICC. That's part of the reason why a member of the Hague Group. Um, but in addition, as beyond South Africa, I think as a continent, you know, the spirit of resistance does is from the struggles that I already mentioned from the different countries on this continent, that people are just, they're refusing to just like sit and be taken advantage of and treated like second class citizens in their own countries because they're very aware that for a lot of us, I think Africans have become aware that for a lot of us, this continent is the only home that we have, Um, even if one of us manages to get a job in Europe or a job in North America, when they go there, they're constantly being said, yeah, but where are you originally from? They're constantly being othered. They're second class citizens, even if they end up getting citizenship in that country. So the solution then is not like to go and become an expat elsewhere. The solution is to try and make sure that home works so that if you do decide to leave home, you're doing it because there's you just wanna leave. You just it's a choice you're making, but not because you don't have a choice.
Okay, so we are coming to the end part of our interview. Uh, what message would you like to convey to ordinary people, especially those who are far away from Palestine, Sudan, Congo, and Haiti?
I think it's important to know that we are all interconnected, and the problems that I have in South Africa, we have a concept called Ubuntu. I am because you are, So we're all interconnected. So just because this place seems far, it is not really because you think about it. I was telling some friends from Germany. I said, your car companies have just been closed. And now you guys have lost jobs in the car assembly plants. And what you don't know is that those jobs have come to South Africa because labor is cheaper than in Germany. So if we communicated better as workers, we'd have been able to notice that no, and South African workers would say, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this to our comrades from Germany.
Yes, solidarity is very important, especially solidarity among the working class.
Absolutely.
So, it, so It was an eye-opening session with you, Zukiswa, and thanks a lot of you. So basically, you told us that how unwavering solidarity and support between the working class has the capacity to change the world how we see it today.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so it's important that we realize that we're all interconnected and we
So
need solidarity with each other.
yeah,
You
so
and I know that right now there are workers who are African, there are workers who are Indian, who are being kept in near slave conditions in United Arab Emirates, for instance. You know, so it's very important then to be able to say if we have solidarity uh, as Africans and as um, Asia and stuff, and we work together, we realize our people are being exploited. This doesn't work. We need to disengage with this particular country, but we also need to hold our countries accountable so that our people don't have to go and work in those near slave conditions.
yes, neutrality is complicity and silence is basically violence. And true solidarity means using every voice, art, and act to break the siege of indifference and apathy. And the solidarity becomes a form of love, courage, and moral responsibility. So, thank you for this wonderful and really intriguing conversation. We hope that your message reaches people who have become brain dead zombie in global all global all ruled places. Uh, Thank you. We are all in this together, and long live People's Revolution.
Thank you very much. And solidarity.
Yes, always.